Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News. Now, on Thursday, April 11th, the Governor-General of Canada, Mary Simons, hosted a symposium at her official residence and workplace, Rideau Hall in Ottawa. The purpose of this discussion was to build a safe and respectful online world, a media release reads. In recent months, the issue of online abuse has been gaining momentum as more and more individuals have bravely shared their experiences. This symposium will bring together individuals who have been impacted by online abuse and subject matter experts from across the country. The event will raise awareness of the prevalence and impacts of online abuse, facilitate the creation of networks of resilience, and encourage professionals from a range of disciplines to work collaboratively to develop solutions. The event ran roughly 5 hours and included a fireside discussion with Lisa Laflamme. Panel 1 was titled The Lived Experience of Online Abuse. It consisted of Dr. Teresa Tam, Rachel Gilmore, Kevin Raphael, Santi Sue, and Faye Johnstone. Panel 2 was titled Emerging Solutions for a Safer Digital World, featuring Matthew Johnson, Aline Nizagama, Francois Savard, Anila Omar, and Vanessa Brousseau. The symposium was moderated by equity and inclusion advocate Emily Nicholas. This collection of radical activists, government bureaucrats, and Liberal MPs was not at all diverse in thought, and it all sounded far too similar to the Justin Trudeau tabled Liberal legislation called the Online Harms Act, Bill C-63, which creates a unique hate crime offense by making amendments to the existing Criminal Code of Canada. It comes with hefty fines and even lifetime jail sentences imposed on Canadians found to be guilty of this non-specific crime.
We join allies like the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Australia, who have also legislated in this area. We have learned from their experiences. We cannot tolerate anarchy on the internet. The cost is too great. The safety, the mental health, and even the lives of our kids and our most vulnerable are at stake. I'm confident with the Online Harms Act in law, we can build safe online communities where our kids can flourish, where illegal hate is contained, and where citizens can fully engage in rigorous debate without fear of being targeted by threats, by violence, or by hatred. There's an aspect that deals with the commission that's being created, and there's aspects that deal with the criminal law. We are creating a new freestanding hate crime offense. We are enhancing the penalties, as you mentioned, for the hate crime offenses that exist currently. And we're also ensuring that a peace bond could be procured for somebody who there's a reasonable likelihood will create a hate crimes offense.
The bill will create a new regulatory enforcement arm of the federal government through a Digital Safety Commission, a Digital Safety Ombudsman, and a Digital Safety Office of Canada, further bloating the Liberal NDP bureaucracy, which is why we're fighting it at stopthecensorship.ca. Because we need less government, not more. And this sweeping and ambiguously worded piece of legislation was even discussed at the symposium by Liberal MP Arif Virani, he proclaims on X. Virani just so happens to be the Minister of Justice who introduced the act earlier this year. The fact that the Governor-General, who has a constitutional duty to be nonpartisan and apolitical, featured only those on the political left, shows a lack of judgment and compromises her neutrality. One of the most important roles that Simons has in her capacity as the Governor-General is to ensure that Canada always has a Prime Minister and a government in place that has the confidence of Parliament. Simons is supposed to offer valued counsel to the Prime Minister and act as a democratic safeguard in Canada. In addition to this, she's supposed to encourage excellence and bring Canadians together. So when the Governor-General decided to host a bunch of pretenders, from max-vaxxed misinformation superspreader like Rachel Gilmore, a failed journalist fired from Global News for presumably being too awful to listen to.
Are you going to invite your unvaccinated relatives to sit at the dinner table with you this Thanksgiving? Experts are saying you might not want to risk it. Here's why. According to one expert from McMaster University, vaccines are super effective, but they're most effective when you're surrounded by other vaccinated people.
And Faye Johnstone, who parades around looking like Gilmore's opposite-sex doppelganger while thieving opportunities from real women, rallying trans Tifa to aggressively protest his political opponents, and receiving federal funds to do it. This event flies in the face of the Governor-General's once esteemed duties. Watch Valley Girl Gilmore give a tour of the event. I mean, the poor unrefined gal didn't even know how to get dropped off at the the front door.
Spend the day with me at Rideau Hall, where the Governor General invited me to speak at her symposium on online hate. I got up just before 6 a.m. so I could make sure my hair and makeup was on point. Then my Uber driver dropped me off and I started the long trek to Rideau Hall. I swear it's like the longest driveway in Canada, but it was so worth it. Like, look at this building. It's so freaking pretty. I honestly felt a bit out of my depth. There was even a tense moment when a guy from Meta spoke and people called him out for being a part of the problem, because we were there talking about online harm, right? So that was a tense moment.
Gilmore claims to be hanging out with so many cool people, yet they all appear to be weak-minded individuals playing the victim card for clout. Take, for instance, Chief Medical Officer of Health Theresa Tam, who asked social media giants to direct traffic to her vanity social media accounts over the generic government accounts in early March 2020 as the pandemic was coming into full swing. We obtained these government documents through our exclusive government accountability website, rebelinvestigates.com. Look at this. On page 4, strategic communicator at Health Canada, Sarah McKenzie, asks Google, could you please point to our vanity URL in all cases? And please point to Dr. Tam's Chief Public Health Officer Twitter account, as opposed to the Health Canada and Public Health Agency of Canada account. Then Tam cried wolf and played the victim as though she didn't bring any criticisms or skepticism about her role in Canada's failed pandemic response on herself. This has prompted reports like that of the National Post, where it stated that Simon's conduct was unbefitting of her office and equates her as a head of state with the same behavioral expectations as a monarch. Monarchs face literal assassination attempts, the article reads, frenzied tabloid harassment and commentary that ranges from fair criticism to cruel harassment from separatists, Republicans, and communists. But Queen Elizabeth II wasn't one to complain or lobby for censorship laws. She recognized that a head of state should be strong and unwavering, and should refrain from complaining about the inconveniences of office, which are far outweighed by the advantages. But this kind of criticism of the symposium led Rachel Gilmore to cry a lot.
Filmed a whole video about this and realized my audio wasn't working, which is probably for the best because I was crying a lot. But it's actually so insanely painful to have dealt with life-altering, career-ending death threats for the last 2 years, and to open up a National Post article today because the Governor General tried to do something about the issue of online hate in a non-politicized, unrelated to legislation way. And all of these people who have never said a fucking word about the harassment, threats, and hate that journalists, public figures, generally women and racialized people or members of the LGBTQ community face, people with no solutions, are taking issue and nitpicking the fact that she held this symposium. And the worst part is, they're calling them mean internet comment.
Meanwhile, others have stated that the Governor General should immediately resign in shame to protect the integrity of her office. A tweet from lawyer Ryan O'Connor reads, she put herself in the middle of a parliamentary and public debate on legislation still before Parliament, and in doing so demonstrated her support for the government and the aims of its proposed law. As such, I contacted the Governor General media line to inquire accountability questions like how much public funds were used for the symposium, if the event was recorded and will be made publicly available, how many attendees were receiving government grants or paid bureaucrats, and what solutions they discussed in panel 2. Also, how all of this aligns with the apolitical mandate of the Governor General. Here's the response in full. Since turning off social media comments in February 2023, a priority of the Governor General is to shine a spotlight on the issue of online abuse and harassment, raise awareness of its impacts, and empower people to stand up against toxic online discourse. As part of this initiative, the Governor General used her convening power to hold a symposium at Rideau Hall. The costs related to the symposium are covered by the operating budget of the Office of the Secretary to the Governor General. Related amounts will be disclosed in due course through public accounts and proactive disclosure, but we're already after the fact. Participants were responsible for their own travel costs. However, the Office of the Secretary to the Governor General did help with travel costs for a small number of invitees who self-identified as needing assistance and could otherwise not have participated. All expenses related to travel and hospitality were in accordance with the Government of Canada policies and directives, so we definitely were on the hook for this. When inviting participants, the Office of the Secretary to the Governor General worked to ensure that a diverse range of individuals and organizations with experience and expertise in dealing with online abuse were invited to the symposium. Invitees included academics, journalists, government officials, gender equality advocates, mental health practitioners, tech industry representatives, youth leaders from across the country, as well as senators and members of parliament from the Conservative, Liberal, and NDP political parties. The symposium provided an opportunity for participants to make connections and collaborate on potential solutions. The Online Harms Act was not on the agenda nor part of the panel discussions. The OSGG will produce a report on the findings from the conference, which will be publicly released in due course, and will continue to support the Governor General in raising awareness of online abuse and harassment and promoting digital respect. Signed by Lynn Santere, Deputy Director, Public Affairs, Office to the Secretary of the Governor General. And the Governor General has certainly benefited from her time in this top bureaucratic position where her only role is to be nonpartisan, something that she couldn't even do. Simon received an $11,200 raise this year, her third raise since she assumed office 3 years ago, bringing her annual salary up to $362,800 per year. She took the taxpayers for at least $3 million in travel expenses during her first year in office, where one 4-day trip to Germany cost $700,000, with over $100,000 of it going to in-flight catering. She also billed taxpayers $71,000 in limo fees for a 4-day excursion to Iceland in 2022. Mary Simon spends more on fancy rides over a weekend than the average Canadian makes in an entire year. The Governor General's flagrant spending flies in the face of struggling Canadians and disregards her duty to instill confidence in the government, which, with its out-of-touch policies like onerous climate taxes, only exacerbates our hardships. This underscores the utter lack of fiscal responsibility at the pinnacle of Canadian governance. I guess the Governor General isn't a match for strong and wavering head of state with a thick enough skin to withstand criticisms online. How does that saying go again? If you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. To find out how we're fighting back against state-sponsored censorship, head over to stopthecensorship.ca. There you can support our work and sign up to receive our emails so that you can stay up to date. Please also consider chipping in to help offset the costs of our journalistic endeavors since we don't receive any funds from funds from the Justin Trudeau Liberals. All of that at stopthecensorship.ca.